Thanks for joining for this session where we will look into green steel projects around Europe and around the world. We'll have a specific focus today on green steel supply chains and role of this sector in accelerating green hydrogen market. So before I introduce our panelists today, I'll just introduce myself briefly. I represent the Stockholm Environment Institute. We are co-hosting this session today. And within SEI, in short, I have the role of being the head of leadership group for industry transition. This is a UN initiative that has been launched in 2019, and maybe I can sit. So we've been launched in 2019 at the UN Climate Action Summit with the purpose of accelerating non-state actors' commitments in heavy industries together with governments. So today we convene 18 countries around the world. Japan just joined actually last week, and 19 companies from heavy industries, and ThyssenKrupp is one of our members. So I won't tell you too much about it, but one thing we do is we track green steel investments. So we have a green steel tracker. Not now, don't get distracted, but after the discussion, please go and check our website, the Green Steel Tracker. You can see the green steel announcement around the world that has been made, where they are, and which technology they are using. But today we'll be mainly looking at hydrogen-based production of green steel, and there are many other ways. But let's focus today on green hydrogen link. So I'll let my panelists introduce themselves, and then with that, together with that, we'll start our sort of Q&A. I'll be asking them questions, and I'll be also collecting questions from you. So perhaps we can start with you, Kaisa, if you could introduce each yourself and briefly who you're presenting.
Hi everyone, it's lovely to be here today. So my name is Kaisa Ryttberg-Wallgren. I'm heading up the green hydrogen and green iron division at a fairly new company called GH2 Green Steel. We are building a 5 million ton green steel mill in the north of Sweden, aiming for start of production in 2025. We are also in a partnership with Iberdrola to do a similar venture, you could say, on the Iberian Peninsula. Thank you.
Thanks, Kaisa. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm Millán García Tola. I'm the Global Hydrogen Director in the company in Iberdrola. And as you know, we are a long tradition utility, very focused on renewable, and for Iberdrola, green hydrogen is the perfect complement for this renewable ambition that the company has. So happy to be here with you.
Thanks so much. And on my right, we have Erika.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. My name is Erika Mink. I am the head of public policy and government affairs at ThyssenKrupp Steel. So one of the group Martina Merz represented this morning. And as you've heard, you know, we in the group we believe on the triangle of hydrogen production, distribution, and infrastructure, and the off-taker. So we would be a significant off-taker of green hydrogen, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Okay, I'm José Manuel Arias. I'm the chairman of ArcelorMittal in Spain. And as you know, ArcelorMittal is a very well-known steel-making company in the world. Has the commitment as another colleagues to make the decarbonization, and we have in Spain a big project in order to decarbonize half of the production through a DRI route combined with electrical arc furnace based in hydrogen. So also we are one of the biggest potential of takers that we can have in the north of Spain. And we are part in the consortium that maybe some of you has been already listening about. This is HyDeal. Well, ArcelorMittal has been one of the founders with the idea to produce 330 kilotons of hydrogen, but the horizon's 2030, starting at the latest 2025, beginning 2026.
Thanks a lot, Jose. Well, as you can see, we have a strong panel. We have, some companies that have been around for a long time in the steel business, and also some new entrants. And of course, an energy company, which is quite an important link to make the green hydrogen supply chain and green steel supply chain a reality. And I know all of your companies have strong commitments, you have plans for green steel, but perhaps we can go a little bit technical and explain which technology options you have ahead of you. I'd love to hear your commitments. And again, perhaps we can do a mix. We can start perhaps with you, Kaisa, and Erica, over to you, and we can hear from Jose, and sort of close the circle with a perspective from an energy company point of view. So over to you, Kaisa.
So what we are building up in the north of Sweden is, like I said, it's a 5 million ton steel mill. And in order to enable that, we need to build, and the technology choice we have chosen is DRI. So we are at the same time building 2.1 million ton direct reduction iron production. In order to do that in a green way, we need green hydrogen. So we have decided to build about 800 megawatt electrolysis and a 1 to 2 hour of storage. The reason for the low storage is, first of all, in the north of Sweden, you don't need bigger storage to have 8,000 hour DRI production going, because you have a huge base load of hydropower available in the region. In terms of technology choice for the electrolyzer, we are going for 3 different technologies. The majority will be alkaline. The reason for that is that it's a proven technology. It's commercially, it's viable right now. It has a lower capex, and basically there are suppliers who can provide this huge volume that we want to have, or we require to have. We have a second part that is solid oxide, which is an immature technology, but it has a perfect fit with a steel mill, where you can use the steam coming out. So you increase the efficiency. It's a small share of what we build, but it's probably one of the biggest in the world when it's coming into operation. And thirdly, we will have about 100 megawatt PEM or pressurized alkaline, and that is to enable quick ramp up and ramp down and work with grid balancing services. So that's the technology choice that we have chosen. And then, of course, many different ones in the steel mill, but I'll leave that for later.
Thanks so much, Kaisa. I think this is great to sort of understand you have a variety of electrolyzer technology, and they complement each other. And Erica, when I turn to you, perhaps you could also sort of explain that, yes, making green steel is technically feasible, and it doesn't really require a huge, does it really require a huge change of the plant? What do you think? Well, at least at the production side.
In fact, it does. You know, in contrast to Kaisa's situation, we have to transform an existing steel mill. So it's a kind of a brownfield operation which we have to transform. And just to give you some order of magnitude, it's we always like to say in size, the main plant we run in Germany, in Duisburg, is about, just in area, it's about 5 times the size of Monaco. So we produce there about 11 million tons of primary steel every year. And we have, today we operate 4 big blast furnaces. And those we need to step by step to substitute. We also go for DRI, for the DRI technology. We have the second step is slightly different from what other companies are doing, but not fundamentally. So we call it an SAF. It's a different kind. It's a smelting technology by which we then use the solid material we get out of a DRI and remelt it, so that we then can produce it in the existing technologies and downstream technologies we are having today in place. But in order to do so, you know, we have to. So we plan now between now and 2030 to replace 2 of the or to install 2 direct DRI plants. But in order to do so, you know, we need still at the same time make sure we can operate the old ones, while at the same time, you know, the transformation means we have to step by step the upstream technology, you know, we have to replace. So today, for example, we are totally autark or almost autark on energy, because we use off gases from the blast furnace to and generate our own energy, which in the future we have to purchase as soon as we change the technology. So it's one big headache for us is, you know, where do we get the amount of green electricity we are going to need? So we have today, just to give you a few numbers today, we have an energy consumption of about 4.3 terawatt hours a year, and by 2030 we will almost have to double it. Of course, we want it to be green, and we can't produce it ourselves, so we heavily depend on the infrastructure development and the scale-up of green electricity, which is a priority by the current German government. In terms of hydrogen, we will need to run the 2 DRI operations in 2030. We will need about 10 terawatt hours, and after the full transformation of our site, we will need up to 26 terawatt hours. So these are gigantic numbers, and so we depend heavily on infrastructure. So we are in a lucky situation in a way that we have all the gas grid. The pipelines are almost there, some 20 kilometers we still need to build, which is a good, you know, which is a favorable position we have being in that region. But the main issue will be really to get the green energy, sufficient green energy, because of course the future must be green hydrogen. And also, you know, in the phase of, and I'm sure we come to that later on, in the run-up between now and 2030, a big condition and precondition will be also the regulatory framework, and the financial framework and the financial schemes being provided during this phase of transformation in this decade.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Erika. This is really you really showcase the scale of change needed, and of course this requires having the right regulatory and finance environment. We'll definitely come to that, but let's look at Spain.
Okay, it's not going to be quite different of the other two colleagues, because in our site in Spain we have 2 BF, 2 blast furnaces. And the first step in our decarbonization program is to replace one of them, to replace one blast furnace for a direct reduction, a DRI. That will be more or less of the sites that has been explained before. It will be the site of 2.3 million tons. This is the idea, is more or less the same magnitude of the blast furnace that we have today. With this DRI, we are going to feed one electrical arc furnace, and that we are going to build, to make direction in the same place. And also we are going to feed with the DRI another facility that we have in the north, that is Stau, that will become one of the earliest steam making totally green, and we expect it to be done at the end of 2025, 2026. In the case of our site, where we are going to build the DRI, we are going to feed the DRI with a combination of the remaining siderurgical gases that we are going to have, because one remaining BF will be in operation, and also we have some gases coming from the coke battery that we are not going to close in the short period of time. There is the possibility also, of course, to use natural gas, and as soon as hydrogen, green hydrogen, be available, we are going to make the substitution of all this in order to become totally green. This is the idea. So, which is the advantage that we have in the country? We have a very extensive capacity of renewable, let's say, energy. This is our idea is that to build everything related with hydrogen, mainly based in PV, in solar. This is solar. This is our idea. So the idea in the consortium is that we don't want to be connected with the grid. So we will be a dedicated PV that will be linked with the electrolyzer, where we are going to generate this green hydrogen. And the transmission is going to be by pipe that we need to build, by the way. It's not going to be a short one. And the good of the advantage of the strength that we have in the project is that inside of the consortium we have different companies that have different roles. We need a transmission operator. We have the TSO. The TSO is the company that very well known in Spain is Enagas. So Enagas is the consortium. We have the developers that can provide these PVs, and we have the off-takers, big off-takers, because we are not only alone. We are one big off-takers, but very close to our facility, we have another big off-takers. This is the fertilizer. Fertilizer is another sector. So as we are going to build a long pipe, we have in the pipe some storage capacity as the step number one, because we can use this storage capacity. And also because the profile and flexibility of the different sectors that we are going to attract to the project allow to us to have a very efficient, let's say, consumer off-taker in relation with the generation. This is more or less the logical that we are trying to build. And again, the time is running. The time is running because we keeping and pushing in order to be able to be starting the production and the consumption, the latest Q4 2025 or beginning of the first half of 2026. So it's there. It's there. We need to be ready to put all the permitting at the end of this year. So it's a lot of, I can imagine, a lot of work to do, because the benefit is we have the scale, we have the off-takers. That means with the scale of off-takers, we expect to have a very attractive price, commodity price, and with that, we expect that we don't have an issue with the finance, because I believe that we have all the different elements that we need to make this kind of project. And the reality, if we want that the hydrogen be a reality, we need that projects like that be real. We need to be concrete and real. If not, we are going to lose this kind of momentum. And this is the project where many partners are there, are really committed. We create a new company that is really managing this project, and this is the only way that the hydrogen play the role that everybody expects.
No, I fully agree that what we see with offtake commitments is showing the business case is actually there to make green steel a reality, because the market demands it. And I'm going to ask you about that, guys, in a minute, because we've seen in the news that even without the steel plant being there, you've sold a lot of volumes to the market. But before that, maybe I'll go back to Sweden example. We have the hybrid project, of course, that is the first demonstration project. We've seen the green steel, a few hours before. I've touched it too. It's very cool. So it's been demonstrated, and the success of hybrid. One of the success factors was the cooperation between LKAB, the iron maker, the steel company SSAB, and of course Vattenfall, the energy company. So that consortium, coming together made a huge difference. So I would like to ask you, are you part of such consortiums with steel manufacturers? And what role do you play in helping heavy industries, energy-intensive industries, become greener using hydrogen, of course?
Okay, yes, I agree with you that collaboration is the, I'm not going to say the only, but it's the best way to start this new activity, this new industry about green hydrogen and green after the green hydrogen. And we, as Iberdrola, have a lot of examples about this. Last Friday, we inaugurate a 20 megawatts plant of green hydrogen in Spain. We have a partnership with Fertiberia, so that's a real facility able to produce 3,000 tons per year. And there is no way to do that if you don't have a strong commitment from both sides of the equation. So this is something that is quite different from the raw materials that the industry was using up to date, like electricity or natural gas. You need a strong commitment from both sides of the equation to make green hydrogen industry reality. You can't build a green hydrogen plant and without an end use for that hydrogen. So more examples about this. Of course, we have a partnership with GH2 Green Steel, in which we are working together in developing a plant, a green iron plant, a green steel plant in Iberia, able to produce more than 2,000 tons per year.
2 million ton.
2 million, sorry,
Yeah.
2 million tons. I'm thinking about hydrogen scale, not iron. So, but that's the only way to do this. It's not only because of the capex you need to build the project. That I don't think that's the point. It's about how complementary are the companies. So, again, for me, it's a must in this situation. We are not in the situation of competing between companies, because as today there is no business about green hydrogen and the rest of the value chain. So we need to cooperate. We need to be close to the administrations. We need to be close to Europe. It's the only way to make this real.
Thanks. No, I fully agree with that. And we try to do that also within Lead It, within our group that I lead. What I want to do now is we have still some time. The next 15 minutes, I would like our conversation to be sort of divided into two. Let's first look at market, because we talked about it a lot. So perhaps I could ask each of you again, how do we create the market? What does it take to get there? Share some experiences on sort of how did you make the business case? And then spend some time also on the regulatory, and perhaps in the second round we look at the sort of regulatory needs, what government actions are needed. And within each of those, I'd love to hear from you opportunities and challenges you see. Let's do that and then open the floor for questions. Perhaps again, Kaisa, and then we can go to you, Jose, and to you, Erika, and you'll be the last again for this round. I prefer
that.
Okay, Kaisa.
No, but if we start to talk about the market, that is actually in one way where our company started. So we have the same founders as the battery cell maker Northvolt. They were founded some years earlier than us, but it's really based on the principle to see if there's a willingness to pay for a green product in the market, because it's going to be more expensive than a brown or a gray product for a while. So that's kind of where, in one way, it started. It actually, just to give you a little bit of background, it was at the board meeting for Northvolt. Northvolt has one of the big owners is a Volkswagen Group. So our founders and Volkswagen had a discussion. So yeah, it's all good with batteries, but how do you actually decarbonize how the car is made? And what is the most polluting part? It is steel. And hybrid has proven that it is possible. So we were thinking, the world doesn't need another pilot, it needs large scale. So let's build a 5 million ton green steel factory. How hard can it be, right? So that's kind of where it started. And so we knew then, we talked to the market, and we knew that there is a willingness to pay. And we have been open about that. We see a premium of 20 to 30% on top of brown steel for our products. We have signed term sheet and long form agreements of 1.5 million ton. That is out from our first phase production of a total 2.5 million ton from 2025. So the total value of this is about 13 billion euro. So it's huge. So yes, it is the case, and we need to do this because we don't have any money by ourselves. We are going to the market for financing. So we have to show there is someone willing to pay what it costs you to build this. And honestly, to decarbonize the steel industry, you don't need to build another steel mill. There are plenty of excellent steel mills out there. You need to change the way how iron is made. That's where you have the highest abatement part. But in order to accelerate the transition and really make sure that we are creating this new product of a green steel and put it in a different price position, we kind of had to build a steel mill. So that's where we started. But now in the collaboration with Iberdrola, we don't necessarily will build a lot of steel mills around the world. It is really, we are focusing on how we can decarbonize hard-to-abate industries, starting with steel, and it is about green hydrogen and green iron right now.
Yeah, thank you, Kaisa. I'll turn to you, Jose and Erika, but I also wonder, perhaps more for you, do you see competition with green iron ore, but when it comes to you, Jose also?
Well, in our case, as a global company, ArcelorMittal has a clear commitment to be aligned with the Green Deal. There is no doubt. So, but 2050 is too far. 2050 is to say nothing. So this is why we start to develop what is the intermediate target. And the intermediate target we reach at 2030. So globally, ArcelorMittal has the commitment to reduce by 30% the CO2 emissions by 2030. Europe has raised the bar to 35%, Europe as such, in 2030. But in our project, we want to reduce 50%. Even we try to rise even a little more the bar. Why? Because we believe that we have the means that we need to do that. We have solar. We have the possibility to create this kind of big consortium where the collaboration is there. This is not possible to do in our consortium. The idea was not just to do for one single sector. One single sector. When I listen about the amount, we are talking about 8 billion, more or less close to your figure. It's a big amount of money, so we need to have much more than one consortium. A single company, a single sector never will make this kind of investment. But when you are able to collaborate between the different sectors, then this is the beauty of this kind of collaboration, that really you can bring this kind of solution. And I agree to my colleague, we need to make real. And to make real, this is a scale. And with no scale, there is nothing, there is no solution. We are not talking about very small project to produce by marketing, between brackets, that we are able to produce some tons. We are talking about, just to give you some figures, 9.5 gigas of PV, 7.4, 7.5 gigas of electrolyzer. This is the 8 billion of investment. So this is the level in order that really to change in a radical way. In some moment of time will be, you are taking on risk your license to operate. We need to contribute. Steel is one of the biggest emitter of the CO2. So we need to contribute. We are talking to reduce more than 4.5 million tons of CO2 per year. This is 4% of the total emission in the country. So there is no doubt. This is the step number one, and as soon as everything be ready, because there is a lot of technological risk in front of us. There is no reactors like that running just 100% of hydrogen. This is not there. So we need to be bold in order to be there. But this is our spirit, that we believe that the technology is ready, is there, and then we need our commitment to make things happen.
Thank you. Over to you, Erika.
Yeah, I think, on the targets and where we want to be, we all agree, and I think the whole steel industry is more or less on that trajectory. But in our case, I think, I wouldn't be so sure if the market is ready to pay the premium. So that's they may do it for small amounts, but as you may know, that our biggest market is also, in our case, a car industry, which is a very, very tight, and very it's a market where it's not so easy to increase prices. And what we see is, the premium needed very much depends on the cost for hydrogen. But also, and I think you mentioned it as well, we will need natural gas as a bridging technology. And this is, in the current geopolitical situation, quite risky. So a lot will depend, how these markets evolve, how fast we will have the green hydrogen, and how soon we will be, we can phase out the natural gas as a bridging solution. And so we think there is still a need for early years to have contracts for difference, which is a discussion in the EU. It's a discussion in Germany to see, which part in order to help companies in all this uncertainty and to manage the risks. of maybe, you know, not having the market picking up as quickly as we need. So we are very much in favor and collaborating on the development of contracts for difference. And another discussion which we have in the EU and nationally is, you know, how can we create lead markets for green-based materials such as steel? And we really believe it would help. You know, there are discussions about quotas and whatever, you know, one can come up with, or even, you know, by our customer base, our downstream users, to see would there be, you know, also some sort of commitments to give us some more certainty and risk management measures. And I think we all have understood that what we're doing here, it is systemic change, you know, and we all said it, you know, it's not one single element in the network to change. It has to, we need this systemic change, but we believe we will need some incentives. We need probably a policy push into the market for green steel. It's one part. Another part, which is a headache for the entire European steel industry, it's carbon leakage protection, and I think that's it's really a concern. And the new policy measures we see, it's the carbon border adjustment mechanism as proposed by the European Union. We have some doubts if that's going to be effective. And with the whole discussion also on the emission trading scheme, which is right now in the political negotiations. We fear, you know, that on the old technologies, we will have to run them in order to finance the new ones, so that the costs may too early, you know, go up too high before 2030 through the loss of free allowances in the emission trading scheme. So all these discussions are going to have a massive impact on the business case. You know, how fast will we be able to invest in the technology change? So we still believe, you know, there will be a solution, because I think everybody wants, policymakers, civil society, we want to have this change, and there is a common understanding that we need to keep base material production in Europe, just, you know, for resilience and sovereignty for our economies. But we believe that the current decade will be really decisive, and it will be critical that there will be not just CapEx support as being discussed, and with the IPCI projects being in the pipeline, but the big issue for us will still be for some years also the increased OPEX, and there we think that you know, that big part has to, or we have to have incentives to drive the market and to get premiums paid by our customers, but still we will need still also here some risk mitigation tools, such as contracts for difference.
Well, thanks, Erika. It was sobering, you know. I think we believe there's some market demand there, the business case is there, but it's true that perhaps it's not at the scale needed. And it's getting harder and harder with construction prices going up, energy prices going up. So I think it's great that we've already kickstarted with the kind of policies we need. But I would like to give you also the opportunity to tell us a little bit about how do you see the market. And I'm also curious to hear from you. Is steel industry the biggest, do you think, customer for green hydrogen for Iberdrola?
Yes, first of all, I think that it's not about the market, because I don't see much raw materials like steel globally around the world in everything, so the market is there. But from my point of view, what we need to do is to focus. Green hydrogen is, unfortunately, is an expensive product as today, and that's there, and it's not going to happen. It's not going to move and to decrease dramatically in the few years, because the cost of energy is what it is, and the cost of electrolyzers and the rest of facility are what they are. So, taking into account that the cost of green hydrogen is always more expensive than the energetic vector that is replacing, of course, natural gas, of course, direct electricity. We need to focus on those sectors in every market in which we, as Kaisa said, we see that they are willing to pay a premium for that transition. That's the only way to do this, because even in the case that the subsidies are not going to fulfill the whole gap between green hydrogen or green steel and the equivalent brown or gray. So there's a combination of course, targeting to the right niche in every sector in which you can apply your product, but of course, at least at this moment in which the industry is I'm not going to say starting, because unfortunately it's not starting. They are just examples, just pilots. Pilots in the case of steel, pilots in the case of green hydrogen. So we need subsidies, we need subsidies. I don't know the subsidies just need to be to CapEx. I don't think that subsidizing the CapEx is the right solution. I agree with you that contract for difference is the best way to help to cover this gap. And sorry, I lost myself. But yes, no, so I mean, trying to target to the right niche, subsidies, contract for difference could be the best solution, and regulatory visibility of what's going to happen in the next 10 or 25 years, because we see today that the cost of natural gas, the global situation of feedstocks could make us believe that this is the moment, but yes, this is the moment, and today, just today, green products could be competitive with gray, but we need to plan at 20, 25 years. And last but not least is what's going to happen with CO2 emissions. So if the cost of CO2 emissions right now is 80 or 90 euros per ton, this is not going to help as much as is needed. So we need to increase that. We need that the regulatory policies increase the cost of emissions, and this is going to split the companies that are moving to the transition and the companies that doesn't want to do that.
Excellent. I was actually going to ask that.
Could I just add one thing when I have the two of you here as well? Because one thing, and we are not here to disrupt the industry, we are here to accelerate the transition. Because as I said, our purpose is to decarbonize the industry, and we can't do that alone. We have to do it together. But I also would like the steel industry to rethink the value chain. Does it really make sense to build large-scale green hydrogen and connect it to DRI in sites where you have a levelized electricity cost of 80, 90 euro? If you even can get hold of green electricity, does it make sense? Or should you rethink the value chain and consider to put green hydrogen and green iron production, convert it to HBI or hot briquetted iron, and distribute that product? I don't say it's a solution, but I just want to bring it up that it might be a better use of green electrons for the future.
Would you like to comment on that? Because it's
I
very
comment
interesting.
something because first I'm sharing the view of Erika. I don't see the market paying a premium. This is my feeling today. This is nice to have, but I don't see the market ready. And I believe for some small amount, yes, but for large amount, for the moment, the market is not created. I don't see. Maybe some policy makers can make that this happen, but today, this is not real. About your questions, this is our idea. We are trying to put on the road new energy, this new renewable energy. We are not taking energy for the grid. We are making new PVs that are really connected with the electrolyzer where we are going to produce the hydrogen. The discussion is, okay, to produce the DRI there or to produce the hydrogen. The cost of the transmission below 1,000 kilometers is affordable. It's, let's say, 0.1 euros per kilo, something like that. It's something that is not changing the equation. So our vision is, okay, better to produce the hydrogen and make the transmission or the transportation of the hydrogen and not to make the transportation of the DRI. Anyhow, even in our case, we are partially going this direction because we are going to produce an DRI in one specific site and we are going to ship to another that is more or less 200, 300 kilometers. There is a combination of both. This is finally our proposal, and it's our view in this country. We know that in ArcelorMittal, in other places, are not the same. In the north, they are very close to the decent solution, that the solution that we have in Ghent or that we have in Dunkirk is very close to this. But there are different routes, and every country needs to find the route that is much better for the weakness and the strength that we have. So in Spain we have solar, we have sun, and we have the one places or one industrial areas where really you can find this kind of collaboration, because we have many sectors that in case that you put some competitive hydrogen, this is again coming to one of your statements, we need to find competitive hydrogen cost. Today in the morning we start to see with Bloomberg and some guys telling that okay, the $2 per kilo is not a dream. It's not a dream. So why not? Why not? As faster as possible. Because the best that you can do is to make a business case that is based in market, not in subsidies. This is our approach. We want to make a real case based in market. And market, we need to feed with the condition of the natural gas before the crisis. And was at the level of 25 euros megawatt. This is the break-even point. The rest is subsidized.
Erica.
Yeah, I want to also to react to you, Kate. I think you brought up a very interesting and very valid point. But I think, also, and this is even more valid now in this whole, in the current geopolitical situation. So I really think we have to see, how do we want to go build global value chains, global supply chains, without creating new dependencies. And being a German, we suffer greatly. I mean, you're blessed in Sweden that you fortunately are not so dependent on Russian energy supplies. So I think that this whole geopolitical situation makes us again reflect and see how should we build value chains in the future. And we strongly believe, we must keep critical production in Europe. Absolutely, we cannot have, and it's critical base material production to have a critical mass in Europe, and we need to transform a big part here in Europe, and we also need to keep technology leadership. I think that's also something, we cannot have technology leadership by building DRIs in other parts of the world. I think we need to keep, at least until, in the next decade, we need to really learn and need to keep this technology leadership, and at the same time make sure that we have really a resilient base material industry, including steel in Europe. And I think that balance we have to strike. And I think the future will show, how much and how we collaborate with new partners around the world.
Thank you. I fully agree. And you'll see when you visit after this session, the Green Steel Tracker, you'll see most of the developments are in Western Europe. But of course, steel is globally traded. So if we think that CBAM will not be effective, hopefully we'll see other countries jumping on the bandwagon and also investing in green steel, so that we don't actually need a CBAM that some think might be inefficient. So we work with India and other countries around the world as a leadership group to help that. So I hope we can see it. But I think it's good time now, unless you want to add to the discussion, to give you an opportunity to ask any questions if you have. I don't know somehow we do it, but if there are any questions, please raise your hand, and I'm sure there will be a microphone. Yes. Yes. Great.
I'm happy to leave this just to one panelist to respond. And I think in a way it's been answered, but I didn't quite understand the HBI point. But is the question, will the hydrogen actually come to the plants ultimately? And if so, in what form? Or do you actually really see plants moving to the hydrogen? I sort of think that's what you just answered, but I'm maybe one of your opinions from Iberdrola or something.
Yeah, I think it's different in each case. So perhaps you both can answer, or all three can answer this because it's different, right?
So when you do the financial modeling right now, it's very obvious that electricity is a huge part of the cost of a green DRI or green iron product. You have to take out all costs you can in the value chain. And what we believe in as a company right now is large-scale green hydrogen production with direct offtake to iron. That is the only kind of financial viable case we see. And back to you say there's no market, I think there is a market if you have the right cost base, if I can challenge a bit. Because we are in the north of Sweden, we are in the best possible location in Europe, or northern Norway as well, to produce green hydrogen at a low cost, and to then meaning produce green iron and green steel at a low cost. We do see an appetite to pay the premium, what is needed for us to have a profitable and bankable case. So yes, to your question, we believe you have to co-locate green hydrogen and green iron. And then, of course, you lose some because it's good to transform or transfer the product hot. You will lose that if you ship this HBI product instead. But still, it's bigger upsides with being close to green electricity with your green hydrogen production and green iron.
What do you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, it's a question of resilience, and I think there will probably be global HBI production in the future. Well, it's already today, but I think we have to decide, and this is it's a political decision, on how much and how secure we want to be in Europe and how resilient we want to be. And I don't accept the answers to say, well, energy costs are too high. I think that we have to also, and they are extremely high, and you're absolutely right in your assessment. But we have to say then, what can we do to get them down? And I think that's a discussion we absolutely must have urgently and it is now. It is starting now, with especially triggered by the current situation.
I believe he's already answered. Nothing more to add.
Okay, thank you all for answering. Let's take another question.
Just a quick follow-up on the value chain question. One of the difficulties is moving loss of jobs from current centers. And I was wondering, in an integrated steel plant, are most of the jobs not in the downstream bit? So the blast furnace segment actually has relatively few jobs as compared to downstream finishing and all the activities that are close to the customer.
Anybody would like to answer?
Okay, we have, I believe, quite balanced situation between the primary and finishing in relation with the number of jobs. What is true is that soon as we move to this kind of new technologies, we need to change. We need to change, and the productivity will be totally different, running one DRI or running one blast furnace. Because the blast furnace is not only alone. With the blast furnace, you need to have the place where you prepare all the iron ore. You need to have the complementary, let's say, coal that is going to be injected in the blast furnace because you have the battery, you have the sinter. So all of these elements are around one specific reactor when you make the reduction of the iron ore. This is not the case in the DRI. So there's a difference. But again, this is one part of the equation because also when you are building these new technologies, you are going to create another kind of jobs, another kind of unemployment that will be there. And that will be quite relevant that we want to be one of the first and to keep the knowledge inside of Europe. Because you can imagine until now, we were using, the steel sector has been based in two main components, iron ore and coal, for many decades. And the fuels that we are using, we were in this period able to increase the efficiency. Now we are changing to a new field. We need to find this kind of efficiency. That means that it's a lot of R&D that we need to develop. The research and develop is needed in order to reach this kind of efficiency and profitability that we need to have in order to make our business sustainable. All these kind of things will happen if really you have this element there. because many things related to the combustion, related to the refractory, related to the storage, all these kind of things need to be developed. We need to raise the bar until the limits that really you are going to be quite profitable and sustainable. And as I mentioned before in one of my interventions, there is no single DRI in the world running 100% hydrogen. There is no. So it's, again, a quite technological, let's say, response that we need to create. And this is the know-how that we need to have here. Because around that, thousands of employments we are going to create that for sure accept this, the question that you put on the table.
Erika?
And just one aspect to add, our two companies are already working together to create the skill set for the future. So we're working with institutions to see what is a skill set, how do we prepare already now the workforce we will need in the future to run this new technologies. So which is quite exciting, I find.
Yes, because what's the option? If you don't do that, what's the option?
There is no alternative.
There is no alternative.
There is no plan B.
No, there is.
It's like the
That's
planet. There is no plan B. We need to move.
Brilliant. And exactly as we see in Sweden, you're also creating often jobs in areas that are quite, quite left alone. The north of Sweden was somewhere nobody wanted to go and work or live, and now it's this exciting green steel and battery heaven, and everybody, young people, want to go and work there. But I think, yeah.
No, and I can just add, and I guess that's one of our big advantages, because we can recruit for the future. We don't need to think about the legacy. Obviously, we have a huge respect for your knowledge in steelmaking, and that we need to learn and try to maybe recruit a few. But we can really recruit the ones that will lead into the future. That it has to do with digitalization, automation, how you are driven by higher purpose. It's really about the new type of talent, and we have fortune to actually build that from day one.
I couldn't think of another excellent way to finish this panel, actually. So please join me in thanking our panelists. So we'll be right on time. Thank you.